mentioned earlier today, Attorney General Pam Bondi was on the Hill, loaded for bear. She described a weaponization of the Justice Department that went after President Trump. This after disturbing news about former Special Counsel Jack Smith, who was looking into the January 6th Capitol riot and who to indict. On Monday, we learned the FBI, while working on cases for Special Counsel Jack Smith, tracked the private communications and phone calls of nearly a dozen Republican senators. That's spying. One of those senators, Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin, said this.
It should shock every American of what the Biden administration has done. By the way, this is the first time I was targeted by the FBI. Under the Obama administration, the same thing happened to both Senator Grassley and I. As part of the Foreign Influence Task Force, we were giving a briefing to try and convince us that the Hunter Biden laptop was no big deal. Basically, trying to throw us off the track. So this is major corruption.
Ohio Republican and Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan, is here, along with former White House Chief of Staff and Congressman Mark Meadows. Nice to see both of you, gentlemen.
Good to be with you.
First to you, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was bad when the Aruba police had an arrest warrant for me years ago. But, I mean, what in the world is the FBI doing to these Republican senators?
Well, this is all part of this Jack Smith investigation, but I think it's important to remember sort of the big picture. If they can do this to, 9 United States senators and members of Congress, imagine what they can do to regular citizens. I always think that's an important thing. The second thing, a takeaway I always have is, the only thing we get wrong when we start looking into these things is it's always worse than we thought. So here they are looking at the phone calls, who senators are calling. And I think, Mark, we were talking backstage, I think Mark made a good point. They're going after these guys because they're calling the president. I mean, all of us were talking to the president back when all this stuff was going on. And then when you couple all this with what we uncovered a week and a half ago, where they were also spying on Scott Perry when they went and took his phone, imaged his phone, all because this was Jack Smith looking for any way to get President Trump. To me, that's the big this is how committed they were to this lawfare and to undermining the guy that we, made president of the United States.
Well, I'll dig a little deeper. Were these signed warrants? Do you have any idea? I mean, if they're signed warrants by the judge, who is the judge that's signing these?
Well, whoever the judge was, if it was my understanding now is that it was an administrative warrant, and
so no judge. So
no judge. But why is the FBI and DOJ doing administrative warrants? You can understand that with the IRS or the SEC, but you don't even have a position. These senators wouldn't even have a position to quash, the subpoena, and so. If there was a judge involved, they should be impeached immediately. I mean, it's amazing. But to Jim's point, I think it's worse than what we know. What we know so far came from a whistleblower and a little bit of information. I think it's
is the
much
FBI
deeper.
denying it? The FBI, the current administration, is Director Patel denying it?
No, that's what we got.
That's what we got. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, here's one of the problems that I have is that Special Counsel Jack Smith. He would be the one in charge of this, right? Why in the world was he chosen by Merrick Garland, the former Attorney General? He is the one who destroyed Governor McDonald's career by going after him in corruption, and he was convicted. McDonald was convicted, but I went to the Supreme Court 8-0 because one justice recused herself. 8-0 against Smith. He's got a history of destroying people.
He's also the guy way back in the Lois Lerner targeting by the IRS of conservative groups. He's also the guy who was looking for ways to prosecute the conservative groups, saying somehow they mishandled their application when they applied for tax-exempt status. So I think that's the very reason why Merrick Garland picked him, because of what you described, what he did to the governor, the former governor, what he did to conservatives in the whole IRS targeting. That's the reason they picked him. Now, you think about this. One point I want to make is they had already went and got Scott Perry's phone before Jack Smith came along. But understand the sequence. They're doing that, going to a sitting member of Congress, taking his phone. They took photos of Scott Perry, where he was working. They followed him, all kinds of surveillance, all kinds of spying they did. Took his phone, imaged his phone. Then Jack Smith gets named prosecutor. But what's he do first of all? Raids President Trump's home. Then he does this stuff to the senators. So that's sort of the sequence. I think that timeline's important. This is how committed they were to going after.
All right, well, I want to talk about someone who he swims in the same pool with, and that's Jim Comey, who is now under indictment, going to be arraigned tomorrow. And I think if we dig a little bit deeper into Jim Comey, I've never liked the fact that he leaked those documents after he was fired. I don't like that at all, and I think that reflects on his possible intent for other things. But he was the U.S. attorney who would prosecute one of the worst prosecutions in our history, and that was the arrest, indictment, and conviction of Martha Stewart. She was investigated for insider trading, never charged with insider trading. Instead, when the FBI went out and talked to her, they said that she lied to them, and they got her for false statements, and then ruined her career.
Yeah, and what you see here is that many of the Democrats are guilty of what they've been accusing Donald Trump of for forever. I mean, because they keep talking about, even today, they're talking about how the DOJ has been weaponized. Well, they look no further than the last 4 years under Joe Biden and Merrick Garland in terms of how they weaponized the law enforcement agencies that we should respect. And listen, there are a lot of great public servants in the FBI and DOJ. But when you allow this,
but they're not calling out the other ones. So you know what? The other thing too is you should call out.
And to your point, is so many of the bad actors, they burrow in, and they're even there under this administration, not just at the FBI and DOJ, but there are people that are at FDA that right now celebrated the fact that Donald Trump lost in 2020, and yet they're working for this administration. You've got to get to the bottom of it.
Tomorrow's Jim Comey's arraignment. That's a tough case for the prosecution to win. It really is a tough case.
Yeah.
If he is acquitted, there's a good chance he's acquitted. It's a big standard beyond a reasonable doubt. Maybe he is innocent. It's going to look like vengeance against him. It's going to look like lawfare against the Democrats. How do you answer that?
Well, I point to the big picture. Think about the last, 10 weeks, we've learned that, that it looks like Comey and his chief of staff, Rubicki, were leaking classified information. We know from a whistleblower, one of these people come forward that Mark was talking about, who came forward and said that Adam Schiff was encouraging the leaking of information. We know from another whistleblower who came to Director Tulsi Gabbard and said that they changed the intelligence community assessment clear back in 2016, 2017, when this whole lawfare started against President Trump. So all that's come out in the last 10 weeks, and you have whistleblowers coming forward and explaining that to the country how it took place. So I think you look at it in that context. If he gets acquitted, he gets acquitted. But I think it's important that at least he's being held to account for I believe he did make false statements to the United States Congress. What's
the recourse for the people who have a warrant, who go after those members of the Senate and anybody else's records, phone records? Just like, is there a crime? Or,
Well, they violated the Fourth Amendment. I mean, when you
if they have a warrant, they're carrying out the order of the.
But here's the interesting thing was when you look at this administrative warrant, you've got to look deeper. And I hope the outrage that we're feeling today doesn't just die down tomorrow, because what happens is as Jim was talking about, it's not just about these senators, a dozen or so senators. It's about the average man.
But see,
and woman.
that's why I'm glad it's the senators, because there will be an outrage about the senators because of all the other people get it every day in and day out, unless you get a big, poster child for it.
Maybe one other fact I think is important because I look at these things the same thing. What they did to Scott Perry the year before, and then what they did to these senators. When they went to Scott Perry, they also had 7 people show up to get his phone, who've been following. 7 people. They could have called him up. His lawyers would have said, "You can have the phone." But 7 people show up. One of the people there was part of the Inspector General at the Justice Department. The entity that's supposed to oversee and make sure the Justice Department behaves appropriately,
Crazy.
They're in on the deal too. That's how bad it was.
People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.